Okay, so yesterday what you guys talked about, or what we had the video about, was finding the distance between 2 points. So again, if you think about the distance from Maxwell to Geom, that is a numeric answer. It's not an ordered pair. However, when you are looking at the midpoint, which is what we're looking at today, kind of think about the name. We are looking for a midpoint, and a point is an ordered pair. Right? The difference is yesterday we looked at that distance formula and we had to subtract our x values and we had to subtract our y values before we did anything else. Today our formula is slightly different. Okay, there's two different ways to think of it. One is just the formula if you are good at memorizing things. I, however, am not. Okay, so I'm going to give you the formula, and then I'm going to talk about what does this mean, or what does it look like as we're looking at this question. Okay, so this is the formula. Now here's the thing, when you look at this, when you add two numbers and then divide by 2, what you're doing is doing the average. It's the same idea as if you were to add 3 numbers and divide by 3, or 4 numbers and divide by 4. So what I would think of when I look at this is I'm going to average the x's and I average the y's. If you can remember what an average is and that the midpoint is just the average of your x's and the average of your y's, it helps take out some of the uncertainty about those signs, about whether it's a plus or a minus sign. Okay, so when you look at number 1 here and it says find the midpoint of GH given this information, you've got the 7 and the 9. So you add the 7 and the 9 and divide by 2. Now remember, in your calculator, you have to do order of operations first. So 7 plus 9 comes first, then divide by 2, which you get 8. That is your x value. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you think about a number line, okay, you've got, like if I start at 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the midpoint between those is 8. So if you think about it logically, it makes sense. The y values, I'm going to go ahead and add those as well. So I have 5 plus a negative 1, excuse me, negative 5 plus a negative 1 divided by 2. So again, I'm going to have negative 6 over 2, which then, sorry about that, gives me a negative 3. So my ordered pair for my final answer is just 8 is my x value, negative 3 is my y value, and I'm done. That's all I have to do. Okay, so take a minute, try out number 2, and we'll come back and see how you did. Okay, so when you look at this, again, we're going to take negative 7 plus 3. We're averaging them. So we add them and divide by 2. Negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. So I get negative 2 there. Again, if I were to think of a number line, that makes sense that negative 2 is in between those two numbers. I'm going to go ahead and add the y's. So that gives me the 0 divided by 2, which is the 0. So my x value of that midpoint is negative 2. My y value is 0. So again, the midpoint, my answer is a point. For distance, the answer is a numeric number. Okay? This one is a little bit different. Notice that here you are finding a missing endpoint. Now, there are several ways to go about doing this, but in years past, what I have discovered is that if I teach something 3 different ways, people start to mix and match the methods. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach you one way, and if you are having troubles with understanding this one singular way, please reach out to me. Please just either email me, ask me in class, whatever. I will be happy to show you a second or third way, okay? So what I'm looking at is this. I'm going to draw a picture because, again, I am a picture person through and through. So notice I have M is the midpoint of AB. So I'm going to start just with a segment. It doesn't have to be anything on a coordinate plane. You could have it on a coordinate plane if you want, okay? I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to label what I know. So right now, I know that N is negative 1, 2. Negative 1, 2. I don't know why that's changing colors. That's fine. B has coordinates of 3, negative 5. Okay, so then what I'm going to think about is this, and I have to do a little mental math. I'm going to look at what happened to go from the endpoint to the midpoint. Well, to go from 3 to negative 1, I'm subtracting 4. And then I'm going to repeat that from the midpoint to my new endpoint. So I'm going to subtract 4 again. So right now I'm doing negative 1 minus 4, which then gives me a negative 5. Okay. For the y value, I'm going to do the same thing. So if I think about from the endpoint to midpoint, I'm adding 7 in this case. It's gotten bigger. From -5 to +2, it's gotten bigger. And then I'm going to repeat, and I'm going to add 7 again. So 2 plus 7 gives me 9. And so therefore, my endpoint is going to be -5, 9. Okay. Now, I will warn you, if that doesn't make sense, I'm going to do it a second time, and I'm going to go even slower the second time. But if you are somebody who's bad at algebra, one of the methods that I haven't taught you is not going to work well for you, because one of them is strictly algebra based. So what I would encourage you is please don't give up on this particular method I'm showing you today, because I found that this is the easiest for many people. Okay. So I'm going to try this one more time. All right. We're going to draw our picture. So again, I'm going to just take and sketch it. I don't have to worry about a coordinate plane. Okay, so we have K is the midpoint of JL. Okay, so I know K is the midpoint of JL. And then again, what I'm going to do is label what I know. So I know K is -5, 10. L is -8, 6. Now somebody will say to me, how do I know that J is on the left and L is on the right? The answer to that is you don't. What you're looking at is just a sketch to help you. If you want to flip-flop your L and your J, that's fine. But the key is recognizing that I'm always, when I'm trying to figure out my numbers, I'm going from endpoint to midpoint to start. Okay, that's my starting point. So to go from -8 to -5, okay? To go from -8 to -5, it's getting bigger. So we're adding 3 because it's a big negative number getting to a smaller negative number. So now to go from -5, I'm going to add another 3. So -5 plus 3 is going to give me -2. For my y's, and I'm going to do this up above so it's a little bit clearer. To go from 6 to 10, I'm adding 4, and then I'm going to do another adding 4. So 10 plus 4 is going to give me 14. So therefore, my other endpoint is -2, 14. Okay, so there's 2 different things that I've showed you today. I've showed you how to find the midpoint given the 2 endpoints, and then I've showed you how to find an endpoint given the 2, how to find the endpoint giving an endpoint and a midpoint. So just be very careful when you're reading, that you're reading carefully. Okay, so what I'm going to have you guys do is go ahead and try this one out. Pause your video, see what you come up with. Okay, so when we look at this, again, I'm going to draw Q as the midpoint of PR. Okay, and I'm going to make this extra big, so hopefully we can crush this last time. So we're labeling what we know, -1, 3, and then P has a coordinate of 5, 6. So here we see a situation in which our endpoint is on the left with the way that I've drawn it. But again, it doesn't matter as long as you're keeping track that when you start, you're going to go endpoint to midpoint. So to go from 5 to -1, we subtract 6, and then we do it again. So -1 minus 6 is -7. To go from 6 to 3, we subtract 3, and then we're going to do it again. So 3 minus 3 is 0. So our ordered pair is -7, 0. Okay? So reminder, that way that I just showed you doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you. Please reach out, please ask. I'm going to assume that you guys are good unless you say otherwise. I do have other ways to show you, so it's not like this is the only way in which to do this problem. Thank you guys, appreciate it.